بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين. So today we are going to deal with a poem written by Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken. Well, without further ado, if you need to check the biography or to know more about Robert Frost, you can check my previous video about his poem, The Pasture. Now let's move to the historical context of this poem. While The Road Not Taken was published in the Atlantic Monthly in August 1915, uh, the Atlantic Monthly was a literary magazine. Then this poem was used as the opening poem of his collection Mountain Interval in 1916. So why Robert Frost wrote this poem? That's why I asked you to check the biography because it is important to understand this part and actually the whole analysis. Okay, well, in 1912, Robert Frost moved from America to Great Britain, right? There, he made a close friendship with another British writer, Edward Thomas, and uh, they were often took walks together in the woods or the forests. And Thomas was always or most of the time indecisive and hesitant when it came to choosing a road to take. That's why Robert Frost wrote this poem and sent it to him as a letter in 1915. And because Thomas Edward at that time he was experiencing a lot of personal or internal conflicts. At that time, Edward Thomas was thinking about following Robert Frost to America to live there in America, and also he was thinking about enlisting himself in the First World War. So he was thinking about participating in the First World War. Look to the timing. We are talking about 1915, okay? And the war started in 1914. That's why Edward Thomas took this poem so seriously, even though it was just a joke, he took it so seriously and he enlisted himself in the World War One. And unfortunately, he was killed 2 years later. Okay, before um, delving deeper in the poem itself, let me share with you something Robert Frost himself said about this poem, The Road Not Taken. He said, doing my best to make it obvious by my manner that I was fooling, mea culpa. So here Robert Frost is admitting to us as readers that the road not taken was just a joke. Okay? He states also, you have to be careful of that one. It is a tricky poem, very tricky. So it's like a warning that this poem is tricky. And indeed, as I was saying, despite the fact that Robert Frost admits that it was just a light-hearted joke to his friend, a lot of readers, a lot of critics analyze it differently and in many ways. All right, now let's go to read our poem. So, The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveller. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, as just as fair and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for the passing there had worn them equally about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference. Beautiful poem. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the title, The Road Not Taken. Well, this title actually carries two different interpretations. The first one, you can think about it like the road not taken, الطريق الذي لم أسلك. So here, like Robert Frost is shifting the focus from the road that he did take to the road that he didn't take. So it carries a sense of regret. Okay, so he is focusing more and he is regretting about maybe the opportunities that he had lost by not choosing the other road. This is the first one. The second interpretation, it carries a sense of boldness, courage, individuality, non-conformity, like the poet took the road, the non-familiar road, the non-conventional road. So he took the road which did not took by other people. So this is it. The first interpretation, a sense of regret. The second one, a sense of courage, boldness, pride, if we may say, like he is proud of himself to take the road not taken by others. All right, this is about the title. So, as I was saying, the poet draws the reader's attention to the poem's focus on the choice that was not made rather than the choice that was made. The path that was not chosen ironically becomes the more attractive one and occupies the speaker's thoughts much more than the path that he did choose. The second interpretation, pride, courage, and boldness. All right, now let's move to the explanation of the poem. We will reread it again and explain it line by line. So, the first stanza. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveller. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Alright, let's start with the literal or the surface meaning, then move on to the metaphorical meaning. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood. This line provides us with the setting of the poem. So, yellow wood, yellow, the color here, refers or symbolizes the autumn or the fall season. Okay, so the speaker is in the middle of the forest in the autumn season, and he is standing in a fork في مفترق طرق. So he is in front of two roads, okay? And sorry, I could not travel both. He expresses his regret that he could not experience or walk or takes the two roads. Means that he, like here, the inevitability or the necessity of taking a decision and taking one of the roads, because he cannot experience or walk the two roads. And be one traveler long I stood. So he was alone. That's why, and that's allows him to take long time to investigate or explore the road, and looked down one as far as I could. So he was looking and trying to see to where this road leads, of course, to where it bent in the undergrowth. So he was looking till that road like curves or disappears behind the thick trees or the thick plants. So this is for the literal meaning. So the speaker was standing in a fork and uh, in front of two roads, and he was trying to choose one of them by taking a long time and exploring the roads like till he cannot see anymore because of the thick trees and the thick plants. This is for the literal or surface meaning. Let's move on to the metaphorical meaning. Well, two roads diverged in a yellow wood. Of course, the speaker here does not mean the physical roads, the real roads. He's in front of two life decisions or two choices, and he has to take one of them. And he's expressing his regret because he cannot take both decisions or take both choices. That's why he takes his time to explore these two decisions. And what makes the process of decision making so challenging and so difficult is that we cannot see the future or the outcomes or the consequences or the result of our decisions or our choices. That's why make it so challenging and difficult. So the poet here was trying to see the future of his choices, of his choice, pardon, but of course he couldn't because it is uncertain, ambiguous, and um, unknown, of course. So this is it for the first stanza. Let's move to the second stanza. All right, the second stanza. Then I took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had worn them equally, then really about the same. Alright, then took the other as just as fair. So here the poet takes his decision to take the other road. He was investigating one, then he took the other as just as fair, which was also beautiful as the other. Fair mean beautiful and attractive, and having perhaps the better claim. Maybe because it seems to have a stronger reason to be chosen, because it was grassy and wanted wear, because that road seems to be covered by grass and lacked working on it means that people did not or do not travel a lot or walk a lot or step a lot on this road. Though, as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same, despite the fact that passengers or people use both roads equally. You see, this is for the literal meaning, the metaphorical meaning. So here, then took the other as just as fair. The poet is telling us that he takes his decision, okay, because it seems to have maybe better reason or a better a better justification, okay. Then he was justifying because it was grassy and wanted where that he was saying that people uh, are not used to take this decision. Then he contradicts himself by saying that both decisions actually are are taken by people. So this stanza shows that decisions or choices sometimes in life are very close and similar. And that's what make it very, very difficult, because if you have two different choices, someone is bad, ah, some of them is bad, and the other is good, so it's easy to make a choice. Of course, you will choose the good one, but when they are so close and um, almost similar, you can't make a choice. Let's move to the third stanza. All right, yeah. The point here, wherever the choice you made or the decision you made, you will always be regretting not taking the other. What ifs, could have beens. Okay, you will always ask yourself about the doors or the opportunities that the other choice could open or offer to you. The third stanza. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. Well, and both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden them. He here the poet continuing telling or admitting to us that the roads were equal. Here he's saying that in that morning, and because it's morning, it's the early morning, the roads were both covered by leaves, and those leaves were fresh. They were not stepped by people yet. Both of the roads were covered by leaves, fresh leaves, and they were not stepped by people yet. Oh, I kept the first for another day. So he's with a sigh, he's telling that he kept another road for another day. All right, something I want to mention here that kept here in the first version, in 1915 version, was marked. Then Frost changed it to kept. According to you, why? Tell me why. Okay, according to my humble explanation, I will tell you why in the metaphorical meaning, okay? Then I kept it for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way. When you choose a road, of course, that road will take you to other roads and make it impossible for you to come again to that fork, to that مفترق الطرق, and being able to choose again and take the other road. I doubted if I should ever come back. All right. So, as I was saying, Robert Frost is telling us that the two choices or the two decisions that he is about to make are similar. Okay? What I was saying about the capped and marked, when he said marked in the first version, it was uh, more decisive, like he was emphasizing that he will come back and take that road again. But kept, it's less, it's undecisive and uncertain. He is uncertain that he could do that again. And the teacher, when he said that, she said, when he said marked, maybe because the roads were that similar, if he came back one day, he cannot even recognize which road he took before. That's why he need to make a sign to be able to know which road he didn't take, since they are that similar and that close. All right, let's move to the last stanza. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference. All right, so the tense of verbs changes here to the future continuous. I shall be telling this with a sigh. The previous stanzas were written in the simple past, and now we are talking about the future. It means that the poet is foreshadowing years and years later that he will be narrating to his kids or grandkids about the decision he make. Why I wrote these lines with yellow? Let's reread them again. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So forget about all what I said earlier, and just imagine that you are reading these three lines like separately or independently or in isolation to the rest of the poem. So these three lines are the most quoted lines, or the heart or the core of the poem, and they are used by others to celebrate individuality, to celebrate courage, to celebrate boldness, to celebrate non-conformity, like by taking the road or the decision which is not conventional, which is not familiar, which is not taken by others. I took the one less traveled by. I took the decision not taken by many people, the less taken by people, and that made all the difference. وهذا ما صنع الفرق. All right. So, coming back to our analysis, so these lines actually contradict all what we said earlier, because the poet himself admits or confesses that the roads were similar, were equal. Then here he's saying that he took the one less traveled by. How comes? You were saying that the roads were both lay in leaves, both traveled by similarly with people. So why you're saying the one less traveled by? So here, the speaker is talking or narrating to his kids years and years from now with a sigh. The sigh here you can interpret it in many ways. Maybe this sigh of regret, maybe he is regretting his choice, or pride, maybe he is proud of himself because he takes this choice, or nostalgic. Okay, and the difference here, it depends to that side. The difference here may be good because he didn't really precise which type of difference. Is it better or worse? It is a good difference or a bad difference? So it is so ambiguous and unclear. Okay, and this stanza actually, how to say it, like shows us how people or the people tendency to fool themselves, to rationalize their decisions and their choices, and how they try to digest them and giving them meaning. تبون شغل يجستيفيو لروحهم هذوك الديسيجنز اللي دارهم to be satisfied, okay, just to reach that self satisfaction. So this is it for the explanation of the poem. So as we said, that Robert Frost himself that said that this poem is very tricky. That's why it was interpreted in many ways, despite the fact that he himself said that it's just a joke to his friend. And I tried to analyze it according to his biography. So my humble analysis is as follows. But you need to check the biography to understand what I'm going to talk about, because we all know that Robert Frost didn't finish his university. He was attending Harvard University, but he didn't get a degree. He left university. Maybe he was regretting this decision. Maybe he was between uh, leaving university and following his dream to achieve a successful career. Then he made the choice to leave university, and indeed he achieved very successful career. And here we can interpret that made all the difference. The difference here is a good difference, and the sigh here is a sigh of pride. All right. Also, we can maybe about his decision to leave America, because we've said that he moved to Great Britain in 1912 and he returned back in 1915. Maybe it was about that, to move to Great Britain or not. And then he moved, he left his country, his beloved country, and he did achieve a great success. And here it's also a good difference. All right. And if we talk about a sigh of regret, maybe because his success actually impacts his familiar relationship. We all know the tragic events that he experienced. His son committed suicide, his wife, Eleanor, also experienced depression. So maybe it was about that. It was about that he pursued his dreams and not focusing on his family. And here the sigh is a sigh of regret, and the difference is a bad difference. And here in the first stanza, the yellow woods, I told you that it symbolizes fall or autumn season. I gave it another interpretation. Maybe here it's the autumn of his life because at that time, 1915, he was almost 40. So it's خريف عمره. Okay, and this, like, how to say, uh, like, it's serious phase of age in which people really start reflecting and thinking about their choices and their decisions. And when he said, "All right, yeah, here." When he said, "Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever underline the word ever, like it's impossible because he is in his 14. When he can come back and take the other decision. Okay, so this is it for the interpretation of the poem. Okay, the type of the poem, of course, it's very clear that it is narrative poem because it's a real plot. He started with exposing us with the setting, then the main events, then the climax, then what happened at the end. So it was a real plot. It's a narrative poem. The form and the structure. So the poem consists of four quatrains, means each stanza consists of 5 lines. The rhyme scheme, actually, we are now familiar how to identify it. If you're not, go back to the previous analysis of the poem. It's A B A A B, and it's consistent all over the poem. The meter, the dominant one is iambic 3 meter, which gives a conversational and reflective tone to the poem, and you can find also some anapsets. Of course, the persona is Robert Frost. The themes. There are many themes in this poem. The most dominant one are choice and decision making and their consequences and outcomes, the uncertainty and the ambiguity of the consequences of our choices, regret and nostalgia, the regret of the missing opportunities and the door that we didn't explore by not choosing the other choice. Individualism, independence and non-conformity. خالف تعرف لا تتبع القطيع, like be yourself. And boldness and courage. The tone, so the tone depends on your interpretation to the poem. As we said, it's tricky poem, so uh, the tone depends on your analysis of the poem. It's reflective and remorseful, analytical and uncertain, realistic and regretful, ambiguous and pride. Literary devices, of course, we find imagery. Frost begins directly with the primary image of the poem, that is of the two roads diverged in yellow wood. By using this visual imagery filled with the color of autumn, the poet depicts the place where his speaker is struggling to make a decision. He further describes the roads bent in the undergrowth, how how the roads disappears or curves under the thick trees and the thick plants. Like you can imagine it, it depicts a mental image inside your mind. It means that the speaker cannot see what is there ahead of the road. In this way, Frost paints a beautiful picture of two long roads going in two different directions in the woods. Anaphora. Anaphora is a literary device. It's the repetition of word or phrase at the beginning of successful lines. Okay, uh, here it is an example. And sorry, I could not travel both, and be one traveler long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could. So, and here, the repetition of and is an example for an anaphora. Metaphor, actually, the whole poem is an extended metaphor for the choices and decisions we make in life, and how we define, justify, and digest them in our minds. All right, symbolism. Of course, the road symbolizes the choice we make. The road less traveled by symbolizes the unconventional or the less popular choices. Alliteration, the repetition of the consonant sound, focus on the word sound at the beginning of successive words, because it was grassy and wanted wear. So the repetition of w sound here is an alliteration, and f sound in I kept the first for another day is another alliteration. Consonance is the repetition of the consonant sound, but not at the beginning of the words, in the middle or at the end. Okay, somewhere ages and ages has the repetition of su sound, and looked down one as far as I could, the repetition of the sound. If you notice, we didn't consider looked here because it's not about the spelling, it's about the pronunciation and the sound. And looked here, we pronounce it looked, looked, not looked. Okay, that's why it's not counted. Assonance is the repetition of the vowel sound. And sorry, I could not trouble both, the repetition of a sound. And repetition, which gives an emphasis and musicality for the poem. Somewhere ages and ages has the repetition of the word ages. Enjambment, there are a lot of enjambment and caesura in our poem. Enjambment, when the line runs on the next line without a pause, which gives a flow for your ideas and your thoughts. And caesura, when we have a pause or punctuation mark in the middle of the a line. I don't know, maybe. Let me give you an example for those who are seeing it for the first time. Let's consider this. No. All right. So an example for enjambment is this. And sorry, I could not travel both and be one traveler. So this line runs on to the next line without a punctuation mark. And sorry, I could not travel both. There is no pause. There is no punctuation mark, so it's enjambment. And caesura, the next line. And be one traveler, comma, long I stood. So there is a pause within the line, and we call this caesura. All right. And irony. So the irony in the poem is clear. There are a lot of contradiction, saying that the roads or the decision were similar, then saying that I traveled the one less traveled by, or I took the one less traveled by. They are similar. Why you're saying now that it's less traveled by? So there is an contradiction. And also in the last stanza, when the poet tries to fool himself, to convince himself to reach that self-satisfaction by rationalizing and giving meaning to his option. So this is it. I hope it's gonna help you. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.